Welcome to MEDIADOM, where every 2 weeks we discuss movies, TV shows, and any type of pop culture media. My name is Rebecca.
And my name is Manu, and in this episode, we're going to talk about the Star Wars Original Trilogy, which, if you don't know about it, it's the three films came out in 1977, 1980, and 1983, respectively. The first one is now called Star Wars: A New Hope. The second one is Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, and the third one is Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Now, of course, in the aftermath, we have gotten prequels and sequels and spin-offs and all kinds of other media associated to it. But today we're going to talk about just these first three. So very, very, very openly, because I think most people are already familiar with this. These three are a story of how like space tyranny, space fascism is destroyed by space liberalism in the form of the rebellion. We follow our heroes: Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia Organa, Han Solo, among others. And of course, the trilogy concludes. Well, yeah, spoiler alert. First of all, the trilogy concludes with the Empire being defeated by the Rebel Alliance, and our heroes win. Now, what is the earliest memory that you have of Star Wars in general?
I think I was 9 or 10 years old, and I watched it with my little brother
Yeah.
for the first time. And we didn't have the DVDs or anything because my parents were not huge fans. So we went to the local blockbuster back in the day, and we
Oh,
rented the first movie because it said episode 1, and we thought, oh, that's how it works. So we watched 1, 3, 6, 2, 4, 5. That's how we watched it.
uh, the the reverse machete order. No, I don't know how that.
We basically did it because Blockbuster didn't have all the movies, so we were like, okay, just the ones that it had, which were 1, 3, and 6. So we watched those, and then the other we had to buy them.
That's really unfortunate. I like when we talked before about this. You told me that the first one you saw was episode 1. I just assumed that you saw it like I don't know, like as a baby or something. But I didn't know. And what? Okay, so do you remember your experience with them? Like you can tell you tell me like how it was. With how did you feel? Do you remember anything like that?
Dude, I loved it. I remember that I watched. I know a lot of people don't like Phantom Menace, but I remember that after I finished it, I rewinded the tape and I just started watching it again. I was like, this is so good. I'm gonna start again.
That's awesome. And you know what? There's no prequel hate in here until we get to it inevitably. Um, so yeah, that's a very interesting and unique experience. Like,
It
because
is.
I expect that you would say like you watch the prequel trilogy first, but not even that. Like you just kind of skip and almost. Um, can't imagine what that's like. And then of course I can't imagine that the twist in episode 5 was really that impactful to you since you already knew all
Yeah,
that.
but I already knew even before watching all the movies
Oh,
because it appeared in Toy Story 2, and my dad
yeah.
explained the reference, and I was like, ah, okay. So I knew he was the
Wow,
twist.
thanks, Dad.
Yeah. What about you? What is your first experience with Star Wars?
To be honest, I don't really remember. Like my dad is like a gigantic Star Wars fan. Not like a toxic fan, but he collects a lot of things, and of course, he like always tells us his experiences watching the movies when he was younger. So I can imagine that I probably watched like any of them when I was a kid, and I didn't even realize. I think I might have. No, I don't. I'm not sure. I think the earliest experience I have of like consciously thinking there's a Star Wars movie in theaters was back when Episode 3 came out. I think in 2005, maybe 2006. Um, because I remembered very, very vividly that like my parents came back, coming back from the screening, and they said something like, "Oh yeah, Palpatine was the bad guy" or something like that, something to that effect.
Spoilers.
Yeah, I don't even know. Like I suppose I probably knew who Palpatine was because I understood from that point. So yeah, I mean, plot wise, I have no idea how all that happened. I think my childhood memories of Star Wars I are primarily of the Lego Star Wars games, which is
Oh,
because the the soundtrack is like printed into my brain for entirely different reasons than it is in I think most people's. Um, but yeah, and it that being familiar with the video games and especially like the Lego video games really distorts it because I didn't really remember what things happened in movies. I just remember like sets and how things looked, the
yeah.
of Endor and all that. But yeah, so I don't really remember. It was always there around, and I always kind of liked it. But I think I only really got really invested in it, when Seven was announced. And I mean, we'll talk more about that, when we talk about that. But
On
yeah,
future episodes.
yeah, it was always kind of around. It was just kind of not. I'm not gonna say like mandatory to know, but you kind of just knew it because you knew it around here. But yeah,
That's so cool.
yeah, it is. So uh, so okay, let's start with this. I don't know if you would like to give like general thoughts on the trilogy, and then we can get to each film, or how we can like take this.
Yeah, I'm warning. I am a huge Die-Hard Original Trilogy fan. It's
Oh my
my
god.
favorite trilogy. The first two mostly, but I
Oh
love
yeah,
them. And I'm gonna defend Luke Skywalker with my life. He's my favorite character in the entire Star Wars universe. So bear with me, please.
of course. For my In my experience, of course, I really like them. I really like all three mostly. I think for me, episode four is like incredibly like fast. Like I can just sit down and watch it, and I just kind of have fun, sit back, relax, and I think episode five is the best, almost like uncontroversially. Yeah, it kind of is.
It is.
And episode six, I mean, we'll talk about this, but episode isn't really it's really my favorite. I really like the ending, and I especially like it. And this is going to turn people like against me online. I especially like these three, like when we the context of both the prequels, which some people are fine with, and especially episode eight, which a lot of people will not be fine with. um, but
Yes.
if I have to like very broadly, very cool. I think these are like excellent for children to watch when they're growing up. I think they really help you like open your imagination. I think they are very fundamental to understanding very basic things about storytelling. Although I also think that getting kind of like married to these concepts can lead to the way that things are told in this trilogy can lead to people maybe consuming things in a weird way, like expecting all character arcs to follow these beats when of course not all will do that. um but yeah, very openly, I think it's great. I think it's a wonderful story, and it's very entertaining, except for when it isn't. But fortunately, that's not too often. So I think, I mean, just to give like a sneak peek into what it is for me. I think honestly, episode six kind of stinks. Half half of the movie kind of stinks. I mean, I don't hate it. I just kind of don't want to watch it ever. I really like the end though, but everything else kind of seems kind of. I mean, it's well made, I think technically, but I don't really feel like characters are moving or growing or doing really much of anything. So I don't. It's not really my thing. But yeah, I guess we can start with episode four now.
Yeah.
Um, I have to ask though, is there something you very like vividly dislike about? You can say episode four. You can say just in general. I think we can
Well,
start with something like that.
I don't. dislike it, but it kind of slows down the pacing that the movie had set in episode four. It begins in the middle of the action, and it's also exciting because you're meeting Princess Leia at the beginning of episode four, and you're meeting Darth Vader, and you know what he wants, and then the pacing kind of slows down a little bit with following the story of R2D2 and C3PO, and I
Yeah.
don't dislike it. I don't hate it, but it kind of like it lowers the mood a little bit. Like
Yeah.
the urgency disappears, and even though it's not my favorite part, I do understand why it's necessary for the story because not everything can be action, especially if you are gonna be introducing the main hero of the story. So I understand why it's there, but it's not my favorite thing in the world.
Sure. Yeah. It's very. Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine watching it like in the 70s, like with it being the new thing. Just watching droids walking and one of them isn't even using words. So yeah,
Yeah.
kind of experimental. I think I cannot confirm this, but I'm pretty sure like there's a thing where like George Lucas wanted to have even more time with them. I mean, it's already very
It's already too
strange.
much. Yes.
Yeah, and it's already very weird that you take. Is it like literally like 15 minutes to get to know Luke? I think it is. I think it might be.
Yes,
And
or maybe even more, like 20 minutes into the movie.
yeah, and it's like, I mean, I'm very liberal with like the rules of screenwriting and whatnot, but it's weird, it's kind of strange. It works still, I think. But yeah, I get your point. Understand, it kind of drags anyway, but yeah, and yeah, I agree with you that the way it starts, it just like it has a lot of like momentum, like it just takes you along because it's already it's like you said, you start in the middle of the action, so you jump in and it kind of takes you, and then it starts slowing down. It works, but it can be kind of weird for some people, the experience. Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree. Yeah.
especially since I came from watching like Revenge of the Sith, which is like action, action, action. So I was like, what is
Yeah.
going on? But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
um, but yeah, it was really weird, like that transition from action to droids. But yeah,
Yeah, and that's why I mean, I really like recommend. I think if people ask me for the order of what to watch the movies, I think either chronological or release order works. But I mean, I think you should watch the quote unquote the boring ones. I mean, these ones which are more like. I mean, yeah, episode one is arguably uh less happens in it, but you know what I'm talking about. Like, I think this one especially like primes you. Like, it gives you some of the good stuff, but if you're not already into Star Wars, you might feel like kind of boring. And if you start with like episode two, episode three, this one's probably going to drag a little, mostly. Um, but
sure.
yeah, I mean, it's limitations of their time, right? Nobody wants to remake them except for me. I mean, no, I'm not sure.
I
I
what?
take. I have some.
Confession time.
Okay. So okay, I guess we kind of mentioned Luke. I guess we should talk about him a little because he is an important in this franchise, I think.
In my favorite. I I
Oh,
love
oh,
him. I would love.
oh, off. You just you can make we can make this section the what's the verb, like just what's the word, like praising Luke.
Yes, we're gonna be. This is
Onto
gonna be a love letter to Luke for my part.
yeah, go on, just
I
like episode
know
8 was, yeah.
episode 8. Okay, we're not gonna have that discussion like
But, yeah,
not
sure.
yet. But I know a lot of people don't like him at the beginning because he's a little bit whiny. But I love that because he is 19. When you're 19, all you want to do is like it's normal teenager, late teenager attitude, especially since he's stuck in the middle of nowhere and and he thinks his life is gonna be farming when he craves for something greater. So I do understand why he's whining. I get why people hate it. They don't like people complaining. I get it, but I just it just make him it just make him like a baby boy. He is a teen, so yeah.
Yeah.
Don't go against him just because he's whining and complains a lot. Uh, but even with that, I think he's a really great character. But you can see, and you can see it in early scenes when he's kind to C-3PO and R2D2, and
Hmm.
he makes a conversation with them instead of like not disregarding their feelings.
Yeah.
And he's just like, and he wants to help when the whole message of Princess Leia appears. Of course, he's attracted to her, which is weird,
Yeah.
but he genuinely wants to help, and I think that's a really strong beginning for a hero, and that's what draw me into his character from the very beginning. You can see he
Hmm.
has his flaws, but he's a great guy that can become someone great if given the opportunity.
Yeah. I would like to add on to that, speaking specifically to the look of this first movie, because I do think the way I see it, I think he has like a character arc in this movie, and
Yeah,
then like a second character arc from 5 to 6,
yeah,
and then
sure,
a
I
third
agree.
one in 8. Yeah, so he has like three different arcs. They kind of build upon each other, which is really neat. I really like. Um, and this one is like I think the most like basic general Re- uh no, okay, the second one is all they're all very like grounded. I think that you can I always find myself really like surprised when I rewatch this one, because you don't like the force is kind of like a nothing thing. It's just kind of like faith,
Yeah.
which is amazing. I really like it. I like, of course, when we get more into it, but I also think it's very cool when it's just kind of a mysterious thing. It's kind of like this weird esoteric concept. But it's like, yeah, have faith in the force. Um, but yeah, so it's kind of like I think like his arc in this one can be, and most character arcs can be summarized like this, but it's him going from like a boy to like a man. I think it's like the way it would be summarized, because he's like this innocent kid who just wants to like you
Have
know
adventures.
yeah, things in his life, and he finds something worth fighting for in the rebellion and with the force. If we're talking, I don't know if we have a specific section for this, but for like weird out there takes. But I've read the take that Star Wars, the first one, is like about religious radicalization, which, yeah, that kind of happens, but it's like it just happens. It's not like propaganda or anything. It's just the way it happens. It's not that big a
Yeah.
deal. Anyway, so yeah, it's very cool. And I'm going to say, when we are here on the very first one, that the Force, excuse me, is uh, in terms of, if we look at the movies as what they are, movies, the Force is just like a plot device. Like, it does whatever we need the Force to do at any given point, which is great because that's how you write. Um, I mean, if Luke Skywalker has never flown a ship in his life, I think he has flown speeders. I think there's a
Yeah,
line about,
he said
but
that.
uh huh,
It's kind of a meme, something like that, like about the
uh huh,
worm rats or something like that.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, if he has never flown a ship, and then the first time he flies a ship, he destroys the Death Star. I mean, that's kind of cringe if you don't have the
The
conceit of the Force.
force.
Yeah, so and we have that again years later or years before, whichever way you want to look at it, with Anakin and the Trade Federation, what donut ship.
Ah,
it's
yeah, in the first one.
this is a thing in Star Wars. I want to establish it here because it's going to become a bigger deal in future episodes, and it's something that is definitely true, but I have no issue with. I think it's very cool. Like, I say this, and I say that it's a plot device, and I'm completely fine with that. I think it's very cool. um and I like it having like this mystical, that's not a word, mystic, like air, of like mysteriousness. It might as well just, it will bring you back to life. If it has to, it kind of does in episode 5, I guess, when he's like at the
Yes.
very beginning in the cold. Yeah, so it's great. I really like that. I like that it's a fantasy and that it doesn't take itself too seriously, in the sense that, I mean, I think it would be very disingenuous to like talk about these movies and talk, oh, plot hole this, plot hole that. I mean, they're just fantasies.
Yeah, it's space opera in its
Yeah,
maximum point.
yeah, yeah, like you say, like, oh, really? They didn't fire the I'm sorry, the Death Star had this very obvious and dumb design flaw. Like, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't care.
I
Just
just enjoyed the movie.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not saying don't think about it, but when I say think about it, I'm talking like a read, like an interpretation, not like, well, technically, Luke should not have worn pants in this planet because this and this and that. Like, come on. I
Yeah.
just kind of just go with it. It's fantasy, Just you can see it as fantasy, and it's very very cool. But yeah, I mean, I guess now we're talking about Luke. We can talk about Obi-Wan in
Oh
this.
yeah. With I love Alec Guinness. I think he's an amazing actor. I'm sorry, Sir Alec Guinness, because
Yeah.
he obviously had a huge portfolio before
Mm,
doing Star Wars, and it shows.
uh,
He's the one. He and Peter Cushing are the ones that have the biggest range in the entire first movie,
yeah.
and watching their performance was absolutely great. I loved every second each character was on screen.
Yeah, they're both really good, and I think it was very deliberate, like getting those two big, big actors to give the movie like some credibility, because of course it's really silly and dumb.
And all the actors didn't have any. They have
yeah,
very little experience before
yeah,
Star
exactly.
Wars.
That too, and at some points it shows. I have no problem with it. I think it really adds to the charm to have, like, because yeah, Mark Hamill is fine. He's good. I think he gives his best performance and an Oscar worthy performance in 8, but he gives a good performance here where like you really you buy him. It's fine. He does the job. He's cool. He's likable. He's charming, and yeah, Alec Guinness just brings like this aura, of like you really feel like this guy's gone through like the Vietnam War, and he's very like this is it's the weirdo, right? He just starts talking about like some weird religion and like a cult of knights. Yeah, it's all really nice, and he makes it all very believable, which is very important if this is the first movie and you're gonna bring all of these weird concepts. The Jedi. What the hell
And
are those, right?
and the
But
lightsabers, and he starts.
yeah,
And I think what's more important about his dialogue is that he begins and he starts talking about the Clone Wars, and he starts talking
oh
about
yeah,
a lot of history that has happened in that universe. And if it's the
yeah,
first time you're watching it, like back in the 70s, you have no idea what he's talking about. And he really
yeah,
sold it. Like, I was like, if I haven't watched the other movies before it, I would
mhm,
have been like, oh, okay, yeah, the Clone Wars. Yeah, it's happened.
uh-huh. Yeah, and that has everything. That has a little bit to do with writing, but it has a lot to do with his performance. Yeah, anyone could have just made it like, I fought in the Clone Wars. 5 seconds of silence, suspense and whatnot, and also this and this and that, and
Yeah.
but he really sells it. He was very good for the part. I think I think he made fun of the franchise a couple times off screen, which is really great. I really like Star Wars actors getting angry and not caring. I think it's really funny. Um, but yeah, I mean, and it's also really cool how I think the first mention of the Force we have in this one, is it like 30 minutes in? I think it might be, or even
Yeah.
more,
It's
which is
like
crazy.
10 minutes after meeting Luke, something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy. That's very creative. Well, not yeah, it's creative. I think it's very like bold because it's like a weird concept that the entire story hinges on, and
Yeah.
you're really taking your time with introducing it. But yeah, I mean, it's like a magic trick how this movie works, and I mean, like yeah, I sometimes I say half jokingly like, yeah, let's remake it. I actually think it's very hard to remake something like this because like
Yeah.
it did like everything in a like in a very it almost like effortlessly. I mean, it looks effortless, of course, it wasn't effortless. But like there's so much information conveyed without like bombarding the viewer, right? Because
Yeah.
I
I
really
never
think
felt overwhelmed with the amount of information
yeah.
they gave me.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that doesn't happen very much in excuse me, in the prequels. I think they kind of lose that. I guess you could argue sometimes it's kind of intentional, you know, depending on the order that you watch the movies. But whatever. I mean, we'll talk about that when we talk about that. Um, but yeah, it works really well for this as the very first installment. The way they kind of introduce things, they give you hints. You don't, excuse me, you don't need to know all of it for it to make sense.
Yeah.
But it makes you like interested, like, oh, excuse me, was that the Clone Wars? What, who fought who? But yeah, and I guess if we're talking Obi-Wan, we should talk Darth Vader in this one. So
Yeah.
go off.
He's really threatening. He like not only does his voice is really threatening, but
Hmm.
also like the way he walks. Like you can see that the actor behind the suit, which was David Prowse, he
Yeah,
was really threatening with his movements, and he was really confident. And he didn't. He never. I would never like say Darth Vader is not scary. Darth Vader is silly. I would never say that because both the voice actor and the actor behind the suit were terrific in their job of portraying him as a threat.
yeah, certainly. And I think that only gets better as we go along. Actually,
Sure.
I think he is at his best in episode 6, which I think it might be a hot take. I think most people like him best in 5, but I really
Empire. In Empire, yeah.
yeah. I mean everyone else is wrong. I'm right about that, but that's fine. No, I'm kidding. And yeah, I mean part of what makes it, I mean of course part of what makes him scary is that Darth Vader comes with the whole empire, and with the empire they very early on set up the Death Star. I think we don't really see that there's the giant uh, Death Ray. That's not the name. I'm sorry.
No, we did.
Until like, oh
Yeah.
really? Okay,
Oh
okay. Yes,
no. Wait.
I think
I
I think we might see it, but I think they don't really say by name like this is the Death Ray. I may be wrong about that, but um, yeah. Yeah.
it was
Regardless, I think like part
when
of
they
why he's
destroyed
very
Leia's planet.
yeah, that's when they kind of it's solidified. I think up until that, you get there's like, I mean, it's very clear how visually it's kind of all meant to it's all coded like to look like military like invasion stuff, like oh
Sure.
god, get out of my house, right? And then with that it's like, oh, like okay, these guys are for real, right? Like they they destroy a planet and we forget about it 5 minutes later.
Yeah.
Don't forget, you know what I'm talking about. I imagine, I mean, do you have a problem with that too, because I kind of do.
Yeah, they forgot this entire destruction of a planet, and there. But I get it. I mean, the threat is still there, and once like they destroy it, like I mean, the most important thing is to destroy the threat. That's why they kind of like push past it. But it would have
Yeah.
been nice to be mentioned in other movies, like in Empire or in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, yeah, not they don't even mention it in Empire if I'm not mistaken, or 6, yeah. Which is very strange. I mean,
Because
for me,
it's huge. It's huge.
yeah, and I mean, like, just very, like, I don't want to sound like I don't want to be mean, but I don't really care for the people of Alderaan because I don't know them. But I really care for like Leia's reaction at least, and I mean,
Sure.
has a reaction, quote unquote, on episode 4. Um, but I mean, it just doesn't seem to affect her all that much, and I guess that we could talk about this for a while, but like, yeah, I don't really think they give her much to work with in this franchise. I really think, like, I always get into arguments with fans that say like, oh, but Star Wars always had like representation for women. It had Leia, you know, who had no character development at all, and they'll say like, oh, but she fell in love with Han
Han
Solo. And I
Solo
mean,
and her entire plot revolves around a man.
yeah, yeah, that's my point. Like I think a romance can be like a character arc that primarily in romance movies. And it's hard to pull off one that is interesting, but I think it can work. I don't think it is here. I think the character, if the character arc is just like falls in love with him, uh, and that's it, because that's a problem that for me kind of happens primarily in Five Empire.
Sure.
I don't really like. Sure, I get the 80s charm that Harrison Ford has, but I don't really like that. Half of the movie is entertaining, but it doesn't really do much for me in terms of character. And yeah, I think it's all like part of this big problem that we see here when, yeah, I mean, her entire planet blows up and she kind of reacts, and then
It's
we forget
forgotten.
about it, and then
Yeah. I
yeah,
think
and
even
then
Padme
next
had more
note,
to do with it. Like Padme was at least a politician, and we did see her moments of negotiating and the discussions they had in the Senate. So we did see a little bit of her independent nature, but for Leia, there were really small moments that weren't enough to create an arc.
yeah.
So yeah, I see your point. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's really unfair because I think I might be wrong about this, but I think Carrie Fisher. I mean, she was always she was always good in these, but she was also, I'm pretty sure, at least in Five, she was like a script doctor, and to a degree, like she made like corrections in the script to like dialogue to make it feel more real, and ultimately her character. I think some of the corrections might have even been to make like the romance feel more believable. But it really stings that her character doesn't really get to be much of a character. We kind of, sort of get more of that in the sequels, I think. But I think it's still like a big problem because we don't really get to. I mean, I guess I guess we're now starting to talk about more openly Five and Six as well. And I mean, I guess I should say it at this point. I really don't like, now that we're talking about the emotional impact that events have on like Leia.
Yeah.
I think I think it doesn't work when Luke tells her that he's her brother. That's fine, it works well. But then like we never really address the fact that her father like was complicit in destroying her planet, and there's like a whole like themes of like an abusive relationship. Like what if your father I'm not gonna say the Nas word, but like, what if he's like what if he's in the empire, right? What if he's like part of this tyranny and you're like you fight for freedom, right?
Sure.
It's very strange. I'm really uncomfortable with that because I really wish that's part of why I half jokingly, half seriously say let's remake the original trilogy because yeah, I think there's potential with that character, and she was just completely. I'm not saying everyone behind the movie is like a sexist pig or something like that. I'm not saying that. It's kind of a product of its time, and
Sure.
if if we can improve upon it, that's fine. And I guess we should all. I think we should also discuss it like we're doing here. I think there was a lot of room to improve. I think there was a lot more they could have done with her.
And now that you're talking about that, especially in episode six, uh, I think it's probably the strongest character arc that she has. But at the same time, I'm very bitter about it because it's the episode where she wears the gold bikini
Oh yeah, yeah,
and and she's just like sexualized, and it really bothers me. But
yeah. I'm pretty sure. I think that was Carrie Fisher's idea, but that's one thing where I disagree with her. Um. What's the word? Like I disagree with her perspective on that. But yeah, I agree with you. it's awkward. It's very awkward.
It's awkward, but I also like when she found out that Luke was her brother. The scene was really one of the strongest performances that
Oh
she
yeah,
had. Uh, and she had a lot more to do because she was the one that led them to the Ewoks. She was the one
yeah,
that that's her stronger episode compared to the other two.
yeah. Comparatively, and yeah, it's very weird because like I mean, as we have seen now, and because I say because I know a lot of people like in the fandom online, like Star Wars can like can women can like it. I don't know why. Like I know why, but I wish we didn't have for so long this whole idea of, oh, how do we market Star Wars to women? What can we do? Oh, have her have different like hairstyles and clothing, and it's like, you just give her development to
Yeah.
make her. They step up slightly with Padme, in my opinion, but I think not enough. I think she's still a little. I think we get to know her, but I have my issues with her, which I guess we'll talk about. But yeah, it's very strange. This franchise's relationship with like female characters and how that has kind of shaped a lot of the fan base's relationship with them. It's
Yeah.
it's it's an interesting topic, but it's also like very uncomfortable.
Controversial.
Yeah, it's weird, but yeah, I mean, I guess it's great that we can talk about it. And one thing I really like is that with, again, we'll talk more about this when we get to it, but like with these new movies, we have had these like new spaces to talk about these issues, because they really are issues. Like these movies aren't perfect. Like I can say I really like them. You really like them too. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, we have to, we have to talk critically about them if we want to make like better films, which
Sure.
my opinion already have. But yeah, so I'm looking at the notes here that we have for episode 5, and I had not noticed the very unbiased, impartial first note that you wrote down. 5.
It is the
The
best Star
best.
Wars movie ever. I'm
I
sorry. It is because it revolves around Luke, and I love him. So it's the best
All right.
one.
Wait, but so does Last Jedi. But okay, that's fine.
No, I like Empire. Deal with it.
Okay. Oh, I have to say, I hate the music in these movies. No, I'm kidding with that. I can't say
You,
that.
I was like, oh, how can you say that? It has the most iconic songs in Emperor Strikes Back. It's the introduction of Imperial March, which is the most iconic badass song for villains ever. Voldemort wishes he could have an iconic song like Darth Vader.
Well, he
It
wishes
has,
he had a theme at all. I don't think he has a musical theme. But yeah,
he
go on,
doesn't
go on.
have any. Darth
Yeah,
Vader
yeah.
wins.
So
Uh,
I'll give you the
yeah.
floor. Go ahead.
And it also
Tell.
has the Across the Stars, which is a
Oh
Roman
yeah.
theme, and
Wait.
it's really beautiful.
Oh my God. I thought that was the. I thought Across the Stars was the episode 2 theme of like Anakin and Padme. I
It
didn't
was
know.
reused.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they just changed it. Obviously, it's a little bit
Oh,
much more dramatic on the
okay.
second episode, which is Attack of the Clones. But
Yeah,
it's
the best
basically
one.
a similar uh, kind of like beat.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it has really great movie. I love the score. John Williams is awesome. I have saved some of his songs on my Spotify. So yeah, I love John Williams. He's great.
No, yeah, definitely. I've saved. I think like cumulatively, I think episodes 5 and 8 for me are the ones where I have like the most track soundtrack,
Yeah,
the most music saved. Yeah, to just listen to. I think they're both really amazing. So do you? I guess I think episodes 5 and 6, excuse me, are very intertwined. So maybe I guess we should
we
talk
can
about.
combine them. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
So I don't know. Would you like to talk about Luke's character arc across these two films?
Yeah. One of the things that I loved the most about Luke was the fact that he was allowed to be a flawed hero and that he was allowed to fail because that gave him a lot of opportunity to grow throughout the last two movies.
Mm-hmm.
He obviously grew during the first movie. He went from whiny farm boy to a great rebel pilot, but and that was it. And in the second two movies, sorry, uh, Luke was still on the same place that we saw him. He was still like this commander for the Rebel Alliance, and they could have gone the lazy way and have him stuck on that persona that we already knew.
Uh-huh.
But he was given opportunity to grow when he went to Dagobah and started training, and we started seeing just how flawed he was. He had a temper, he was impulsive, and
Uh-huh.
he had other characters flaws I cannot think, but they
Yeah.
were there, and he was given like the defining point for this character was when he decided to leave his training and face his father,
Yeah.
where he met his defeat
Absolutely.
in a really cruel way. Because not only was he beaten down, he also lost his hand. He found out his father was his enemy, and that's really
Yeah.
horrible. And instead of like going into the dark side and just like my father is evil, so I should be too, he took another road.
Mm-hmm.
He still remained faithful to his ideas. He was still hopeful. He was still optimistic, and I love that about him. That they never changed his initial core. They just evolved him a little bit, and we saw that in Return of the Jedi. He was still
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
maintaining hope that his father was a good person, and that's what ultimately saved Darth Vader. So
Yeah.
I love his
Definitely.
character.
And the galaxy.
Yeah,
Yeah. Uh, that's I completely agree. I think Luke. Yeah, I think on the very first one we get to see him, but they didn't really know where else to go with him, so he's not too fleshed out. And then in the next two, yeah, I think we really get to know he's really impulsive, and I really like that he never gets over that. I really like that that's a recurring thing all the way to like the sequels, which is amazing. But like in these two, I think, like I said, like the first arc, very simple, like person finds something worth fighting for, boy becomes man, right? Whatever.
yeah,
And episodes 5 to 6, I think they are also about like from going from boyhood to manhood, but like you can talk about all of these concepts where like it's like facing I mean, it's really great because you watch Empire without knowing the twist, which I guess is impossible now, and
yeah,
you're like, okay, his character arc is, oh, he has to train to destroy the evil Darth Vader. And
sure.
it seems very simple, but then at the end they kind of recontextualize everything that you've been seeing, and you're like, oh, okay, so you know it's not just about he has to kill the bad guy.
Darth
It's about,
Vader,
oh,
he had
he,
his father.
he has like dark within himself, and that's the like, yeah, the scene in the cave. That's foreshadowing, but it's also like that's the point. Like, yeah, he is afraid, and he's very afraid. Like Luke,
Sure.
he's a guy who really acts like very impulsively when he's scared, which also is always a part of his character, which I really like. Because yeah, I mean, he has that in this episode 5. He has like the vision of the future, and he just says, you know what, this is possible, and I'm afraid of it. uh, Goodbye, Yoda. And then episode
Yeah,
6, e- even though he spends like the whole movie saying, I can't kill my own father and whatnot. The moment that Vader like threatens Leia,
yeah,
he completely like and almost kills him, which is awesome because it's like, like, yeah, of course this guy's like he's young. I mean, this is a part of who he is. He's an impulsive person. He gets scared easily and lets fear take control of him. He almost always ends up regretting it, but I mean, it's a part of who he is, which is great because that comes back later. Um, But I think something that I really like, and I guess we should talk about this, is his arc as, because I think it's very, I think there's a lot with these two films, and then with the prequels, and then with 7, 8, and I guess 9 also exists. Um, there's a lot of like recontextualizing, like with the end of episode 5 recontextualizes episode 5, but also I mean, if you'll notice, the two Jedi masters that we meet in this trilogy
Obi-Wan and
are
Yoda.
are awful. I mean,
Yes, I was gonna mention that. Like, it's really cruel of them to expect to kill his father. Like, and if he hadn't left, he wouldn't have known, and he would have just, oh yeah, I have to kill Darth Vader, and he wouldn't have known
yeah,
that he killed his father. That's like what?
exactly. And I mean, again, this is built upon when we watch the prequels, but like Yoda is the worst thing ever. I really like. I really don't like Yoda. I like, he's wrong about everything, which is really awesome. Because like and I mean, yeah, he's like I really, I love his first scene, and the second scene is also great. I like every scene with him, but I think there's this weird thing where like we're supposed to think he's wise, but he's he's just like repeating the same mistakes that led
That he
to
did with
to
Anakin.
Anakin turning Vader. Yeah, because there's that amazing scene which I maybe ironically love from episode 3, when Anakin is like, Master Yoda, I'm feeling something, and he looks like he's like a bad guy. And Yoda says, "Shut down your I'm sorry, your feelings. You must shut down." I don't know. He says like, "Rejoice for those who are the Force. Mourn them do not, miss them do not." And it's like he basically says like, "Shut down your feelings, suppress them," and that's what makes them blow up in his face, right?
Yeah,
He's now like, they're lying to Luke, and they want him to yeah, Jedi are peaceful, but you have to kill Darth Vader. The Jedi are, they're guardians of peace, but they don't really care about slavery, as we saw in episode 1. But yeah, I mean, it's really great. I really like that these two characters, they keep messing up. It's really funny because and that extends to when Luke himself ends up messing up in the sequel trilogy, because everyone just keeps making mistakes and not learning from the past, which is great because the Star Wars universe is very weird when it comes to memory, because everyone forgot that the Jedi existed apparently. Like everyone's like, in these three, everyone's like, oh, the Force, some weird thing doesn't exist. Even though they had like these Jedi like Force cops basically for thousands of years. That's very weird.
it is weird.
That's not criticism. I'm saying it like, all of this. I went into some weird rant thing, but everything I said here is something that I really like. I like that the two old men make mistakes and they're wrong about everything. I don't know if it's intentional, honestly. At this point, I can't be sure, but I really like it. It's really cool.
I'm probably gonna sound like I love Luke, which yes, I'm gonna say it. But I think had Anakin been the son and Luke been the father, Anakin wouldn't have done what Luke did, because Anakin was a lot more jaded, which is understandable because of the situation he grew up with.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons why we can also draw the similarities between them, but at the same time, they're so different. And I mean, we all know that Anakin is really the chosen one. It was never Luke, because at the end of the day, it was Anakin that defeated the Emperor. But it was really nice to see how the father and son similarities and differences were the one thing that brought peace to the galaxy, at least temporarily, until episode 7. But yeah, I did like that it was the family that saved the entire universe.
Yeah, and I like to compliment what you said, because you said that it has everything to do with how like the differences between their past, Anakin and Luke. I completely agree, because like uh Luke, sorry, Anakin, and we'll talk more about it when we get to the prequels, but like Anakin grew up in a really not good environment. Like, of course, it's not his fault that he was born there, but like he was born into like slavery with
Slavery.
no father working, and then when he's, I think he, what is he, 9 in the first movie? These
He's
weird
nine.
cult, yeah, these like cops from outer space say, "Hey, you are very powerful. Come with us. Leave your mother behind. I mean, we could buy her because we are with the Republic, but let's just, let's just not." And it's, I mean, the he doesn't, yeah, Anakin doesn't really get, and with the Jedi, the environment is awful. Like the scene I mentioned of Yoda being like, suppress your feelings. That's like he got like 10 years of that, and Obi-Wan, I mean, I like the character. This is not a criticism of the character, but he is like, he's not like a great master. He's also, he's not very experienced in teaching people, which is
Yeah, it's
very
his
weird.
first Padawan ever.
Yeah,
So
so it was destined to fail. But the reason, I mean, the difference is that Luke did get to have, it wasn't his biological family, and he was whiny, but they were like a family, and presumably they gave him like love, which then, and he had like friends too. I mean,
yeah,
because,
he Leia and Han. We haven't talked about Han. We will in
oh
the
yeah,
future.
yeah, you're right.
But
I,
he had
and
Leia
sorry,
and
I
Han
guess,
and the droids and Chewbacca and
yeah. But Luke did have friends and did allow himself to feel, um, and then that's why he says, "Hey, you know what? I like your Jedi things, but I think there might be wrong in something. They might be wrong about some things." So, and I really like that. And again, I don't know if any of this is intentional because I'm not sure. Um, but I really like that he, like the way he phrases it in Episode 6 when he says, "I'm a Jedi like my father before me." He doesn't know that, and he's not like his father, but he, in the sense that he might want to like redefine what the Jedi are, which is kind of what the note that Episode 8 ends on. That's really cool. I really like that he kind of learn, like the two masters he has are flawed, and he kind of learns from them. He's kind of redefining what the Jedi should be based on what he was told they were. They were like guardians of peace and justice for the Republic for 1,000 generations, and all that. Um, yeah, I think I really like that. It's really cool. It's amazing. Yeah, love saves the day. Star Wars is about love and and war, I guess, and
yeah,
space.
and crazy family dynamics. But yeah,
Yeah,
but
I guess
yes.
on. So maybe we should talk about him. I don't know if you'd like to start.
I like Han. We didn't mention him in in the little part of episode 4 that we talk about, but I think he's the perfect foil for Luke because
Mm,
Luke is naive and he's just starting out, and Han is a lot more jaded because he has been a smuggler for years. He has seen
yeah,
some pretty bad things. And if you consider Solo a canon, a canon movie, then yes,
yeah.
you understand a little bit about his past and how he was betrayed and everything. And I think that friendship really works because they're completely opposite, but they're both very impulsive. And it works like
Yeah.
when the scene with the Death Star where they're both like, okay, so we're gonna rescue the princess. Even though Han is a little bit reluctant, he's
Oh yeah,
still impulsive and he's gonna do it because he loves the action. And I love that about their friendship.
yeah. At the end of the day, they're both like just the grown up children. They just wanna have excitement and whatnot. Yeah, I agree.
I would have
And
loved to have like a mini episode or where Han and Luke are just on a mission and like
yeah,
doing crazy things. It would have been really cool.
yeah, because we didn't really get to see much between like in Episode 5. Of course, they kind of split very early on, and then in 6 they
They
also
split
split. Yeah.
again.
So yeah, and I mean, I like I really like Han for a lot of things. I have a lot of problems with the character, but I agree with you. I think he's very like cynical, which really counterbalances Luke he's also a little cynical, but differently. Like Han is like, yeah, nothing matters, and Luke is like, yeah, let's go save this princess, even though there are probably like 1,000 stormtroopers here.
Yeah.
Like there's a very eager to act, and Han Solo is very like, okay, watch your step. Some like he's more careful. Um, but yeah, and also I really like because we talked about Luke's arc in the
And Leia's
fourth
lack
movie,
of.
but Han Solo has yeah, exactly. But Han Solo has kind of like Luke's arc, but more, I guess I should say, because he's like he's also about like finding something worth fighting for.
Sure.
Um, and it's yeah, and I think this gets picked up and explored further in in the best episode of the franchise, which is episode 8. But like this idea of like Han Solo, his life kind of sucks. I mean, not to be judgmental, but his life kind of sucked. Like he was technically, I mean, whether you consider Solo or not to be like part of the story, I don't really care.
Dude, I forgot it
But I think it's
existed until
pretty.
yesterday when we were talking about.
Yeah, me too. But if whether I think whether or not you consider it to be like part of the story, I think it's very easy to see that like Han Solo was kind of forced into being, not no pun intended, forced into being a like a smuggler.
Yeah.
Like his life just led to, and he just kept on living, and it's, I mean, if that's kind of that's the kind of life that a lot of people are forced into because of the empire and the circumstances that brings. And
Yeah.
so instead of just continuing to be this dated smuggler guy, he decides to like fight actively the system, or the structure, excuse me, that that makes people be like this, which is really tragic, because the Star Wars universe really is like filled with like smugglers, bounty hunters, all of these people who probably would have much better lives if the Republic wasn't incompetent and inept, and the Empire was. But yes, I really like that the idea that the Republic organically led to the Empire, and then the New Republic was again overthrown by an empire. All that. Anyway, Han. I like his arc in the first movie. It's really always exciting when he comes back at the end. It's like a real, like if I had been there on the audience, I would have stood up and cheered, and then I would have get like beat up in the alley for noise. But it's really cool. I really like it. I have more issues with 5 and 6, but I really like it in 4. How do you feel?
Yeah, I agree. His stronger arc was in the episode 4. I think that was the most drastic transformation in terms of character. But I want to hear your take on his arc on Empire Strikes Back and in Return of the Jedi.
Okay. I will say before I start with that and I have done this with a few characters throughout this discussion, where I have like criticized them. I think I might have called Yoda like an idiot or something. But when I say that, I don't say that like as a criticism of the films. And because again, I don't know how much of what I say is intentional, but I really like how it regardless of intention, what the narrative like adds up to. So I want to say that as a preamble, because I know that a lot of people really like Han Solo, and what I'm about to say, some people might not love. I think Han Solo is very strange. I think I mentioned earlier like the romance in episode 5, that it doesn't really work for me. I think the reason why it worked for people is because the movie came out in like the 80s, and Harrison Ford has charm, and
Yeah.
it kind of reflected and repeated a lot of like low key, sometimes high key sexist tropes in cinema, where like he's very he pushes himself onto her so much. Like this, the last time I watched her, I watched the movie. Sorry, I really thought he was kind of obnoxious at some points. And I mean that is very subjective thing to say, I know. But yeah, it's very weird. I don't really buy why they fall in love. I think it's kind of artificial, and I think it's I don't think it's a great relationship. I think it's weird. I mean, I think I'm attached to them because I know that they care about each other genuinely. But I think Han Solo is like a weird man. So it's kind of I don't know if I want to say doomed to fail, but I will say I really like it in episode 7 when we find out it failed. So yeah, I guess that's my take. And he has nothing to do in episode 6 in my opinion. So that's my take. How do you feel?
Well, he wasn't supposed to return in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I get, and he was written since Harrison Ford wasn't supposed to come back. Like George Lucas hadn't planned anything to do with him, and when he said yes, he was like, "Oh, I guess I'm gonna have to write him." And Harrison Ford wanted to kill Han Solo. He didn't. So like we got what we got in Return of the Jedi. So I understand why his strongest arc is in episode 4 and even in episode 5. But I did like their relationship, but I didn't realize the problems until you started mentioning them. Maybe because I was just like used to the idea
I'm
of
I'm
them
sorry.
together. It's an interesting take, and I like it when they add a little bit to what I have in mind. So thank you for enlightening me on that era.
Oh, I ruined Star Wars. I'm just like Ryan Johnson. I killed Star. Okay. But go. I ruined it. But what else do you want to say? I don't think it sucks. I just think it's kind of it has
It's
problems, but
weird. It's a
I'm
weird
fine with it.
relationship, and which is it's a trope
But like again,
that comes back in every single Star Wars trilogy. There's this weird the relationship between Anakin and Padme didn't
yeah,
last. The relationship between Han and Leia didn't last, and the
yeah.
weird relationship because it was weird. The weirdest relationship ever was between Rey and Ben Solo.
I think it's better than you might give it credit for. But yeah, I understand. Yeah, it's not romances are not
Star Wars.
the best thing about Star Wars, and I think that again goes back to the idea that it's quote unquote made for man in the way that like not really taking into account the way that women might like see it or write it or experience it and whatnot. Um, so yeah, it's a weak link. That's why I really like that they fall apart in episode 7, and also because it plays into the origin of another villain. But yeah, I'm sorry that I killed Star Wars for you.
No,
I'm
you didn't. I still enjoy watching
uh,
like their
no,
relationship,
yeah,
obviously.
yeah,
But
that's
you
the
do
thing.
make some good points about their relationship. It's very weird, and he did kind of force himself into her when they kissed in episode 5.
Yeah, and like I mean that's the thing. I say that, and I really hope that people don't like end this podcast like because
Cancel us.
these two hate Star Wars. They want to, end Star Wars. No, I mean, again, like I criticize that, but I think it's like it. I'm in peace with it to a degree, and I think you are too. Like we like it.
Ah,
We all
yeah.
like. I personally, and I think you agree with this. I don't think that that criticizing something means you don't enjoy it or don't like it. It's just
Definitely.
yeah, you just have a more nuanced opinion on it. Like I don't like I don't want to watch episode 2. I really like I have a lot of interesting things to say about episode 2 anyway. So it's the same, you can like something and have like criticisms. You can not enjoy something and think that there are a lot of cool things about it. And I think that's kind of how we view Star Wars, except for episode 8, which is great and also has great things about it. But I guess we'll talk
Okay,
about
we'll get there. We'll get there. I
yeah.
have to watch it again to.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just really want to like preempt my position.
He loves episode 8. That's the first thing he told me when we met.
It's my only personality trait. But okay, so I guess maybe that closes the door on Han. Oh wait, I did want to ask you. Um, when we introduce Lando, like I think he's very deliberately like I don't know if I would say a full on foil for Han, but
Yes,
we're clear, yeah, yeah. I think we're clearly meant to make some like mental like gymnastics with it, right? Like we got to start thinking like compare these two characters, right? How do you feel about Lando?
I like him. I think he's I like what they did with him. That
Uh-huh.
there was something ominous about him, and obviously we later find out he was working with the Empire. But at the same time, he was very charming and friendly. So he had this weird vibe on him, and I
Mhm.
like that at the end of the day, friendship won over him, and he
Yeah.
did the right thing. And then we see him again in Return of the Jedi fighting for the
Hmm.
good side, which really goes to prove how much he changed.
Yeah. So yeah, I like him. Excuse me. I like him too. I like that he wears a cape. I think that's a very cool aesthetic choice. I always like capes, so that's really cool. That's just a
Superman.
thing. Yeah. Um.
Superman.
Uh.
Yeah.
So he's. He. I think he's great. I think. I like how he like deepens the world we see in Star Wars, and I also really like that. And again, I know I sound like a broken record, but this is kind of done again, explored further in Episode 8, where like have this character who is kind of like quote unquote neutral in the whole like Empire rebellion conflict, and he ends up siding with the bad guys. Like that's cool because like yeah, I mean that's what happens when you're neutral in these kinds of conflicts. Right? But I think that's why it's really cool that he ultimately turns around with again with the ultimate point of Star Wars, which is the power of love, right? Um,
Yes.
so yeah, I think he's really cool. I like he's the one that flies a falcon in six, right at the very end, which is
Yes.
really,
He
that's really
he he's the one that destroys the Death Star, I think.
yeah. That's I think that's a very like that's a small choice that I really like. Um, because like just Han Solo doing it again. I mean, he
Would have
didn't
been
technically
cheap.
yeah, it would have felt very repetitive. I think it makes it feel more fresh that someone else does it. And it's yeah, it's really cool. I like him a lot. And I you know what? I have my issues with episode 9. If
Everybody
I
does.
if I had yeah, I know. If I had made episode 9, sorry, I also would have included Lando in some way or another. I think it's a really cool way to like bring him back. I think because I think you could make like 30 years later Lando. That's an interesting like prospect. Like where would he be?
Sure.
You know, I don't like what
Yeah.
I don't like what they
What they did with
but
him. But
yeah, I mean it was kind of nothing, but it was weird. But I like the concept of him. I guess I like him as a character. But yeah, that's I guess for Lando, we're not disagreeing very much,
we love
which
Lando.
is great. I really like and I really like the laugh he has on the very first scene when he greets Han. That's an amazing laugh. I can't replicate it here, but those who know it, they know it. But yeah, um, I guess we could. Do you have do you Wait, I'm thinking what point we should talk next. If you can think of one, go on.
Um,
I'm just checking.
I was just gonna ask you what were your final thoughts on the entire trilogy.
Oh, um, it's I hate no okay it's a very cool trilogy, which in my opinion is made stronger by future installments. Um, and it's an entertaining. It has a lot of interesting characters. I think a lot of them become interesting until later on. But they are they're, it's also cool here. And what else could I say? I'd like to end with something controversial. Oh, you know what?
So
I'd
they
like to say
cancel us.
yeah, kind of. No. I think I'm not sure if would you like to talk about Vader's redemption? I guess we didn't really mention that like
Oh
deeply.
yeah.
We kind of um I think okay. I think it's tough because I think in look, in the real world a lot of people are bad. I know that. And but I like to believe that people can
Can change,
change,
yeah.
and I like to believe, and I think there might be some like empirical like backup to what I'm about to say. I think that the media can, yeah, it reflects the world, but it also can help us make like an image of the world.
Sure.
So I mean, because clearly like these stories in these first three films are very much like a product of the culture of that time, and they
Yeah.
still resonate, but they're primarily for that time. Um, uh, and with Vader, I think like it's very emotional, the very end. I always get very emotional with his death, and then Luke with the body burning in front of him and all that. Like that's very touching for me. I think it's very it's very moving personally.
Yeah.
But I really I think in general we need more media that is about redemption that does not necessitate death of the character, where like the character, like, yeah, in this case Vader was complicit in killing a lot of people, and he literally killed a lot of people too, I know,
Yeah.
but
And he
it's
chopped off his own
so
son hand.
yeah, and he killed, he just he was complicit in destroying his daughter's homeworld, I know, but like it's a metaphor. So I mean, I guess I'm priming this a little for our inevitable discussion of the sequels. I think that the ultimate conclusion of this whole, like, the reason why I like the ending of six, but the reason why I think that like sequels, I don't know if a sequel trilogy, but like at least like a continuation is necessary, is because I feel like the natural conclusion of a story like this would be that, like, in this case, let's suppose like Ben Solo, that he also redeemed himself, which, spoilers, he ultimately does, but that he didn't have to die doing it. In the sense that, because like I said, I mean, in this franchise, nobody learns from the
From
past,
the past.
and everyone keeps messing up. And for that reason, I think that like the most powerful thing that could happen here is if we learn from what happened with Darth Vader, and the next, quote unquote, the next Vader, quote unquote, which would be Kylo Ren, didn't have to die. Like he changed, and yeah, he would. I mean, for the audience, we can have him suffer for a while. You can have him cry. You can have him like, I don't know, all kinds of things. But I think ultimately, it will be like unequivocally good if we have more stories that encourage people to change. That people don't say, "Oh, I'm too far gone." You
Yeah.
can always come back. And if not, well, there's nothing wrong with having media that tell us that about ourselves. So yeah, I know I went off on a really long diatribe,
And that was his tech talk.
but yeah, but ultimately what I wanted to say was, if Star Wars is about love, then the ultimate conclusion, considering this in episode 6, should be that love uh, heals you, without, that doesn't need to kill you. That you don't need to die. Love can. Yeah, I mean, I guess, would it have been awkward for Luke to come back to the Rebel base with Vader behind him, like, "Hey guys, I got a new
Yeah,
friend"?
imagine that.
Yeah, I personally really like the trope of like the unlikely bad guy like going with the villains. But yeah, I mean, I'm not saying let's change episode 6. I'm saying in the aftermath, I think a story like that would have been very cool. But I like how we end with
How
this
did
one.
it? Yeah, that
You
was
have
a
any?
cool take.
Thank you. I hope not very controversial. How do you feel? No, it's very controversial. I know.
For me, the original trilogy, they are my favorite movies. I mean,
Uh-huh.
I did give you my ranking yesterday, and
Uh-huh.
and the three original trilogy movies were in different spaces, but yeah, they were all there,
Yeah.
and I love them. They are my favorite part of Star Wars, especially because it has my favorite hero in the entire universe.
Yeah, Chewbacca, right?
Yes, it was obviously him. I just spent 1 hour talking about my love for Chewbacca,
We didn't even mention it. Yeah, go on, go on.
and yeah, we didn't mention him. I'm sorry, Chewbacca. We will in future episodes.
Of course.
But yeah, I think they have a really special place in my heart because, as I say, Luke is a hero that I can look up to because he is flawed and he's ultimately a good guy, and those are the type of heroes I want to see. I want to see good guys. I don't want to see the hero that we usually see that it's cynical
More
and
the
gray, morally gray.
yeah.
I mean, it's fun watching them every once in a while, but I do tend to lean on towards more the typical hero archetype where they're good guys with flaws, but they're
Mhm.
good guys ultimately. So this is why this trilogy holds a very special place for me because I love the main hero. And if you want to follow that kind of storyline, this is the perfect trilogy for you.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. And yeah, Luke, I guess I may have come off a little antagonistic in this one. I also really I think he's very cool. I really like that he makes mistakes. I also really like that when he gets older, he keeps making mistakes. I think that's very cool for the audience. Because he always comes back from them, right? Excuse me,
Yeah.
because he always comes back from them. He always keeps learning, which is the ultimate hero thing, right? You learn from your mistakes. Um,
Yes.
and I completely agree with you on the hero thing. I think I don't know why we have an obsession with like anti-heroes. We're like, oh, will he do the right thing? I mean, I get the appeal, but I wish we didn't have it so much.
Yes.
I also really like the like unquestionably good heroes. I think they are very inspiring.
And they
To
are interesting. They're I don't know why people think that being a good person makes you boring. It just goes to show how crazy our world is.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not like I mean, Luke is like as you said, like he's like a good guy, but we also talked about the fact that like his main flaw is that he fears his own internal darkness. Like you can be a good guy and also have those moments of weakness. What makes them heroes is that they learn from that. They know how to grow, change, confront themselves. You know, all that good stuff. But yeah,
Sure.
yeah,
I think that concludes our discussion for this episode.
yeah.
So thank you so much for tuning in. And please like and subscribe if you like what you just heard. And let us know if you want us to talk a little bit more about Star Wars in future episodes. If you leave a comment behind.
Yeah, sure. We will really appreciate all your feedback, and if you have any specific things you would like to comment on for us to maybe talk more about, go ahead. We will read your comments, and yeah, it was a very pleasant conversation.
And thank you so much for listening and see you next episode.
Goodbye.